Hi, it's Susan from Worldpeacefull, and I felt inspired actually to do this video. I was just about to leave the house, get on my bike, do some work. Anyway, this comes first. I always respond to inspiration, as that's what guides my life. So if it's of service, that's great. If not, there's plenty of other YouTube videos. So it's called a global reset. Who are we? Who will we become? Will we share the bright optimism of a rising sun? Or allow the dark clouds of confusion to obscure the light of fun? Why not arise in a new era of enlightenment? I hear the raven crowing as it calls out to distant relatives, whose answer submerges beneath the constant whooshing of traffic that live streams in endless tides of waves, moving to some distant rhythm, towing the line, endless comings and goings, riding on schedules and deadlines. Are we forgetting our lines in this script, or stepping between the lines to encrypt a new cipher? To decipher what is new over the horizon. This is my radar. Is life contained within corrals of what has to be done, rather than breaching the banks of freedom to ask, what do I choose to do next? For we only see our own universe, as if we are the one song singing out of tune, uttering verses others want to hear, as notation is haphazard, for we do not know the entire score, a jumbled arrhythmia of Scrabble seeking the double letter score. But what if the sum of the parts exceeds the whole? What if the whole cannot sustain dismembered parts? What if disconnection confuses the big picture? What is the part you play in this puzzle? Can you remember? For we can play together or play alone. Are we competing for morsels? Is it mortal to compete? What if this is a zero-sum game? For the climate has changed. The storm clouds are gathering as Iceland melts. Antarctica is cracking up. Polar bears drown on drifting icebergs. A polar reversal? Magnetic poles weaken to 0 point, reversing the poles. The goalposts have gone. Indeed, a polarity in search of unity remaps the grids as we lift the lid on mortality to discover the ghost in the machine. For all life is connected. For every action there is an equal and opposite reaction, spiraling down, as Einstein awakens to new consciousness, where singularity is 0 point, and unity is the beginning of wisdom, for we are one. No one is better than another. All life is a resonant frequency. What we do to others returns to the self. As this is a global reset, preparing us to recalibrate to who we really are. Who we really are is the operative word. In the poem I just wrote, we talk about scripts. We're all taught what to say and what to think through the oral and written languages. That's why often it's recommended to become still, to actually quieten the mind. And you would do that by just closing your eyes, breathing in, breathing out, Breathing in inspiration, breathing out confusion. Some call it unconsciousness, that we just keep on with the same rhythms. You know, as I watch the cars going past, that was inspiration for the poem. It's just an endless stream. It's like everyone is in a dream. See, I can feel the poetry coming. And we fall between the seams, or what seems to fall. The beauty of poetry is often opposites arise as I'm developing the poem in my mind. I don't actually redraft it. I usually just let poems flow. Because what I'm really doing is getting out of the script and I'm creating my own. And it always brings me back to global issues. You know, maybe the luxury of myself having time to reflect, where others are really caught up in, you know, what they have to do. One thing and then the next thing and then the next thing. And this distracts us. You know, one day we wake up and we're in our 50s and we say, where has life gone? We just got caught up in the busyness of it all. And I understand that. But sometimes it's wise to just step to the side and watch the passing parade. I always remember a time in London where I was at Victoria Station and I was just stepping to the side and watching the people going backwards and forwards, catching the trains. And I always remember that I saw in my mind's eye the carrot of income that was motivating them to move in the same direction. I even recall at a Rotary convention, it was in Bangkok, I was watching them all going backwards and forwards, very busy, thousands of them. It was a big conference. And I sort of sat and watched. And I thought, imagine in this case, if their shared humanity or unity, which is the 0 point I'm talking about, these polarities, these opposites returning to a unity, which is the same. Imagine if the goal of humanity, working for humanity, often Rotarians talk about, you know, doing good, service above self, and the service above self takes us closer to this unity consciousness because we become, in a sense, selfless. And really what that means is that we're not following our own self-interest, but we're putting the interests of others ahead of ourselves. And I remember observing them moving back and forth and thinking, imagine if we were all walking in the same direction. If we could galvanize that energy rather than competing and fighting, draining a lot of energy and resources in non-productive pursuits, and actually coming together. And this would be what I would call from the poem the one song, the universe. This is actually the one verse. And what I find is philosophically, when we share very similar values and philosophies about who we are as humanity, that what we do to another we do to the self, we start to see that it's counterproductive to harm others. It's counterproductive to fight. And that idea of right versus wrong is what creates this great polarity. Now, from a positive point of view, those contrasts can develop great innovation. From a negative point of view, we can all be caught up in all these little conflicts, you know, around the world, which tends to distract us from the most important focus, which is our shared humanity, where we're all going, who we all become, and how to have fun in a life that's becoming so serious. We're not really communicating in order to understand. That idea even of understanding is a shared unity. When I listen to someone and I hear their perspective and I come into harmony with an understanding, that's how they think. The harmony is not that they agree with me. The harmony is, oh, I understand where you're coming from. Now, if I'm living a life of great respect for everyone, I'm not going to want them to think in the same light as me. I'm going to want them to think what they want. I'm going to honour that they have a pathway through life, the goal of which I don't understand and they may not understand. But nonetheless, my honouring of them would mean that I would not block them from doing what they need to do, as I wouldn't be blocked from doing what I need to do. But we would come together and try and understand how we can work in integrity, even though we're, as the Thais say, same but different. And so this unity is really a reconciliation. It's really a conflict resolution. It's really humanity starting to see itself in one another. This recalibration that I talk about, this global reset, is really throwing up, if you like, an environmental shift, which I believe is going to mirror a human shift. Whilst we remain out of balance with the earth, which we are part of, even though we might think that the nature is all out there, it's actually not. We're part of an ecosystem, or sometimes I refer to it as an ecosystem because life mirrors back. Once we come into a really deep understanding of that, you will realise there's no enemy. You know, in the case of Korea, you won't see them shooting missiles 5 kilometres up into the sky to make a point. You won't have Trump visiting South Korea. You will have them meeting in the middle, where one is not seeking to make the other conform to a perspective it itself is not moving away from. You can't ask anybody to do anything that you haven't done yourself. I remember Gandhi was tested with that. A mother came to him with her child and she said, "Gandhi, tell my child not to eat sugar." And Gandhi said, "Come back in a week." So the mother was kind of a bit miffed and, why didn't he just tell him? He's an adult. So she did what he said and she came back in a week and she goes, "Okay." Gandhi says to the child, "I'd like you to give up sugar." And the mother says, "Well, why didn't you say that a week ago?" And Gandhi said, "It's because I hadn't given up sugar." And that's the point. So we can't tell anybody anything until we become the example of that. In all the discord we're seeing around the world, we can't be in judgment of other people, but we can assist. Those of us who are in the wealthier countries, there's no reason we can't assist those like in countries like Nepal or India, that we can't extend the hand of friendship across the world. And that is the greatest security we'll ever generate. It's not quite understood at this point. We still think weapons are useful in terms of creating these corridors or theatres of security, because it scares the other from behaviours that we think that they will do if they're not constrained. But what's not understood quite yet is when you actually get to know the other, extend the hand in freedom and friendship. Don't presume you know better. Don't see yourself as superior, but see yourself as part of the one human family. That is when we will see a de-escalation and violence all over the world. When women and men come together, instead of these issues that we're seeing surfacing in the media in respect of sexual harassment and what have you, these things will diminish as we start to see one another with respect. And in truth, males and females, or females and males, when they come into harmony, they both are extremely powerful, I think, because both have strengths that the other don't have. And that's what builds good families. Children recognise that in their parents, they pass that on to their children. And that's how we, in a sense, integrate that idea of unity into the world. It has to come through, firstly, ourselves in unifying the discord within us, and that's part of the peace work that I do. The second step is within the family to make peace in the family. And we've certainly had messages over radio here in Melbourne where they've tried to encourage families to think about the things they're saying to each other, the parents, and how that impacts the children. Making peace in families is absolutely critical for world peace. And then from there we move into, say, organisations that are highly hierarchical. We have to learn to find ways to work in organisations in harmony, where we, rather than imposing doctrines on people, we actually work together to create more empowered communities at work. And this is, of course, where innovation arises from. Creativity comes when people feel that sense of license, that sense of freedom. And of course, notwithstanding, that extends into, nation states, how we work as a whole nation, that we embrace diversity within, that we don't demonise various groups within our society on the basis of mantras that are being circulated around the globe in terms of various people who are enacting violence and then those who aren't. When violence is permeating all levels, we're all engaged in it whenever we're engaged in negativity or creating powerlessness. So the idea here is to solve the problem, not hate the person. It's a really important tenet of conflict resolution. So from the microcosm to the macrocosm, we are to learn unity consciousness. I made reference to Einstein in my poem, that we have to shift to a new consciousness, and he's right. We do. We cannot solve the problems from the same consciousness that created them in the first place. That means we have to be able to embrace new ideas, differing perspectives. Things that might seem a bit strange to you may just be that feeling of a recalibration. It always feels uncomfortable when you start to stretch beyond what was your limited worldview into worldviews that expand upon the current one. And if we are going to change the climate back into homeostasis, which means balance, we ourselves must work on unity within. And at its very essence is love. You have to love yourself. You have to love others, despite the differences. You have to love the natural world. And whatever comes into your life is a challenge that's meant to be there. Can you love that? And see the excitement in that challenge? Can you look for the good in it? Because every challenge that comes to you has good inherent within it. It's really up to you to decide what you choose to see. And in the seeing of difference, or being different in terms of seeing, this is the recalibration for this global reset. So with that, I leave you with peace, love, and the excitement of a global reset where we will move on to new trajectories of envisaging futures that are not only sustainable, but unifying, perhaps beyond our imagination. Have fun. Bye.